This video will describe how to scan forms created using the Concord Forms Designer, and you will scan the forms in the Remark Office OMR software, and what to do with the data, the raw scan data, once you have scanned your forms. We'll be talking about how to scan your forms using a scanner attached directly to your computer, and also how to scan your forms using a multi-function device that does scanning, printing, and copying, and that's attached to your network. So the form we'll be using is this one here. This form was designed in Concord using the Easy Form Design Wizard. We've already created the scan template, and if you'd like to know how to do that, you can see the video that describes creating a scan template so your form can be scanned in the Remark Office software. So this is the form. Mostly we're going to be working in the Remark Office software today. Just wanted to show you the form here. And you can start the Remark Office software using the regular start menu, the way you would start any other software. Or you can click on scanning here and scan forms, and this will automatically start the Remark Office Data Center. And if you have the form that you want to scan loaded in Concord, it will also load the template that was created for you. So this is showing us that we're in the Remark Office Data Center. The Data Center is the scanning program where you process your scanned forms and export data. And then here it's showing us that we have this template loaded, and the scan template file describes to the Remark Office Data Center how to scan your form. In other words, where are the OMR or bubble fields, where are any image clips, where are any OCR regions. And then the next item here in the title bar, this untitled item, this is where your data file would be. Since we haven't scanned any forms yet, we don't have a data file, so it's just showing untitled. So it's very easy once you've loaded a scan template into Remark Office, and if you didn't have one loaded, all you have to do is click on File and Open Form Template and go to the area where you have the scan templates saved, and you can load one, but we already have one loaded. So let's just begin. We can begin scanning forms. I have loaded about 15 forms in the automatic document feeder for the desktop scanner we're using, and I can click on Easy Scan here, and the software will go out, begin talking to the scanner, and I can also already see there's a problem so I'm going to stop the scanning here, and my forms were scanning a little bit slow, and that tells me that I've got this scanner set up to scan duplex forms, and even though it will scan duplex forms, the ones we're using today are simplex or one-sided forms. So I'm going to say stop here. I'm going to go to Tools and Scanner Properties, and these properties describe the scanner that I'm using, and I'm just going to change one simple property here, Scan Duplex. I'm going to turn that off. We'll click OK here, and then I'm going to click Easy Scan again, and the software will begin scanning the forms again. That's a little better. So you can see as the forms scan, the spreadsheet arrangement behind us, the data center, starts populating each of the cells with data from the forms. You can also see that there are different colors that are coming through, and those colors of course have meanings. You can see the red color there. It's generally means a rather serious error, and so we'll be taking a look at those once our forms are completely scanned here. Okay, so all of our forms are now scanned, and we can tell it no, we don't want to continue scanning pages, and what I normally do is save. So I can click on the save icon here, and we're going to save as type Remark. This is the native file type for the Remark Office software, and we're going to just go up here and save in this area here, and we're going to call this our 2013 winter test data file. Okay, and so we've now saved it, and you can see up here that we have saved it as an RMK or native Remark file type. This is our data file. So what do these colors mean? Well, down here in the exceptions legend, you can see that the legend that will tell you what the colors mean. The first three are generally error colors, and so we usually process those first. The others are really just informational. You can see that dark blue is an OCR region, light blue is an image region, and we have some dark blue up here, which tells us that this was scanned as an image region. I'm sorry, as an OCR region. So that is what those colors mean. But the three main colors that we want to process are the red, the yellow, and the green. And if you look at the red color, you'll see that it goes all the way across the page. All the fields are red, and you can click on each of these cells and it will show you the area that's scanned. If you click on a good cell where there's no error, you can see that the question of the actual form that was scanned. We call this the image viewer that allows you to do this, and because the software has the actual pictures or images of the forms available, it can show you those. So you can skip around and look at to see if things were scanned correctly, but you can also process these errors. And if we click on these red, we'll see that what we scanned was a blank sheet of paper, and so we would want to get rid of that to clean up our data. And we'll click on the row just like you would in Excel, and then click Edit Delete Row, and we'll delete the selected row. I always do the red problems first because they tend to be the worst, and here you can see what we've done is scanned a completely incorrect form. It's the wrong form entirely. So once again, we would want to get rid of that row, so we'll go to Edit and Delete Row. The next thing I look for is yellow means that the area that was supposed to be scanned was either blank or partially filled in. And when you see a whole line of yellow across the screen here, if you click on it, what you'll see is we've scanned the correct form, but it was blank. So there's no need to keep that data, and so we would want to delete that row as well. So we'll go to Edit and Delete Row and say yes. So now we're down to processing what seem to be good records with a few problems. The yellow fields, you can click on those or not, and just check to see that the fields were filled out or not. Sometimes in certain fields, areas like this, what you might find is that the person has filled in the little boxes here and not filled in the grid. So you could then type that in if you liked. But it's not, that's up to you whether you would want to do that or not. And here we have what's known as a multiple mark, and what we're looking for here is where someone has filled in two bubbles where only one was needed. But we can see that what they have here is 091209, and we can either type that in by hand, or if we have one that's exactly the same, we can just click on that cell, edit and copy, go up here and edit and paste. And so the purpose of what we're doing here is we're cleaning up the data and making it more accurate. Also, if you happen to know that all these forms were scanned on the same day, then you could obviously fill in this date field as well. But if you weren't sure, and we have two different dates here, I wouldn't want to enter data that we weren't sure about. Then over here, we can scroll to the right and look at our actual questions, and we see that there's some yellow fields, and if I click on these, I can see that these are questions that actually were not filled out. And then I can move on to the green fields, the mults, and if you will often see this kind of thing where a person has marked two bubbles. Now this person wasn't marking their bubbles very well, but the software still generally picks up most marks. But they've marked two bubbles pretty much the same, and I wouldn't modify that because I wouldn't know which one to assume that they meant. But you will find things like this where someone, especially with a pen, has filled in a bubble, put a big X through it, and marked another bubble. So it's pretty obvious that what they really wanted to put here was good, and so we can change that. And when you go through these multiple marks, the marks are similar. You wouldn't want to change them, because even though this mark is outside the bubble, it's still hard to tell which one they really meant here, so I wouldn't change that. Here, same thing, two fairly similar marks. Well, here's one that we can change because it's pretty obvious they meant to X out one bubble and select very good. Okay, so what we're doing is cleaning up the data, and the cleaner your data, the more accurate your results, and that's the purpose of what we're doing. The image viewer here makes this job very easy, and you get a better set of data when you're finished. One last thing I want to mention here is that when you have an image clip or image region, and I'm going to click here, these were the comments, and this was set up as an image region. What's actually stored in the data records is not the image itself or the little file where that image is stored. It is, when I put my cursor over, you can see it is the path name and the name of the file where that comment is stored. And as I move down here, you can see the other comments that were made, and we don't really have to remember this. It was just wanted to show you so that you would have some idea of what's going on with the data record. To use these pictures of the comments, all we really have to know is that the column header is comments. There's a report we can run that will gather all these comments together onto that report, and all you need to know is that it's the comments field. So we'll get to that here very shortly. And so now that I've cleaned up my data, I would want to save it again. Now, sometimes you will see things like this in OCR fields. What's happened is the software actually scanned the correct digits, but it added some spaces. And so it's a good idea to, I'm going to click on one that I know is the same. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste into these two down here that had these extra spaces into it. This does happen when you're scanning. No scanning system is perfect, and things do happen, so you can clean them up. Okay, so now we'll save our data again. I think we've done about as much work as we can on this group of data. And what I want to show you next, this is a little bit out of the normal flow of things, but I want to show you how to scan forms if you were using a multifunction device, like they're known as MFPs, multifunction peripheral, and this is a large machine, usually a big floor model scanner, printer, copier, and those devices are normally attached to your network. So the idea behind using one of those devices, instead of using a scanner attached directly to your computer, is you take your forms to that device, you scan them into a graphics file somewhere on a shared drive in the network. And if you're not sure how to do that, you might have to talk to your IT people. But the graphics files that you can create are things like TIF or TIFF files. You can create PDFs, but TIFF files work a little better. So if you're able to arrange to create TIFF files, they just work faster when you go to process. But you can use PDFs if you like, and almost all of those machines will scan into PDFs. And the way you do that is slightly different. We're going to just add some records to the bottom here, and they're going to be pretty much the same records you see here. They're going to be the same forms, only they were scanned into TIFF files. And instead of clicking on Easy Scan to process records out of a file, to process forms out of a file, that is, we're going to click on the Read Wizard. Read Wizard has some extra options that the Easy Scan function does not. So here we could just read directly from the scanner the way we just did, but we've got checked Read from Image Files. And so when we click Next here, the software takes us to where the image files might be stored. Now you can select, you can see these are all the drives I have available on my computer, and I just happen to have the correct one selected, but this is where I stored the TIFF files that we created, and I can select all of these. Now you can scan many forms into one TIFF file. In this case, we did them into separate files, so you can process from one file or many. And I'm going to select all of these, move them over here, and then I'm just going to say read, and you're going to see the same thing happen that you saw when we were scanning directly from the scanner, but it'll be a little faster. You can see the processing goes a little bit faster, and you can see the same sorts of errors because once again this is the same group of forms, and we can once again go through and look, and we can get rid of this is that same bad form, the incorrect form that we scanned, so we're just going to delete that, edit and delete. We're going to get rid of this empty form that we scanned, and we're going to say delete that row again. I'm going to quickly check, and here it's our same problem form, and so I'm going to copy and paste, and you can use, by the way, the shortcuts Control-C and Control-V here, and it does go a little quicker if you do that. And then here I'm just going to check these records and fix the same ones that we fixed before. Once again, so we'll have a duplicate set of records, but that really won't hurt our demonstration here. So we're just going to check all these and see if any of them need to be repaired. We can repair that one. That one doesn't work. And we can repair this one. And do notice as I'm clicking through here that even though some of these forms were not marked very well, the software still did a pretty good job. There is a point where it might miss scan, but here we have just dashes, and you can see that the software did a pretty good job of picking up those dashes. We can't promise that that will always happen, but the software does a pretty good job of scanning any kind of decent mark that's left, and sometimes a not so decent mark. Okay, so we're going to save our data again, and scroll over here and scroll up to the top a little bit. Oh, I wanted to fix these. I'm going to use Control-C to copy, Control-V, Control-V, Control-V. Okay. Not sure why exactly we have a little problem with that number C818 because it doesn't do it with the other number, but there it is. So now we have a data set. So what do we do with this data? We call this the scan data or the raw scan data. This is just the data that came off your forms. Now, if you're planning to process this data in another software like Excel or SPSS, the Remark Office software makes it very easy to do that. You can export this data to other native file types by simply clicking on File, and instead of Save Data, which will save it in the same file we've been saving it into, you can click on Save Data As. And when it brings up the same Save Data window, except that down here, instead of selecting the Remark file type, we're going to go look at the list of possibles. We can save it as a Microsoft Access database file, all the different versions. We can save it as an Excel spreadsheet, all the different versions. We can save it as an SPSS file or the legacy SPSS file, or any of a number of different files. These files here, the ASCII Common Tab and Spreadsheet Common Tab, these are what are known as flat ASCII files, and they are files that are comma or tab delimited between the data fields with no kind of control characters in them. And you can even go down to the bottom, see some very old file types for older software, and you can get down and see that you can even set up an ODBC connection. That is a real-time connection to a database. You would need more than likely some IT help doing that, and you do have to have, there is some setup involved in that, and you do have to have an ODBC compliant database. But we're going to go back up towards the top and just select an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to select the latest version, which is the 2007 through 2010 version, and we're going to put it into somewhere where we can find it, and we're going to call this once again our 2013 winter test data. And actually we're going to make this test data 5 because I already have one out there, and we're going to call it sheet 1. And so when I click OK, the data was saved into an Excel spreadsheet, and you can see that here where it's showing us that the extension is now XLSX, and we've saved it in sheet 1, and we can actually go look at that file. Click over here. I saved it in a folder called AAA, and here is our 2013 winter test data number 5. It's saved on this date at 3:04, which it is about right now, and when I click on that, it will pop it up into the Excel spreadsheet program, and you can see that it's the same data that we had before with the column headers that we had before. Now over here, once again, what I'd like to do is just show you in a little bit something that's a little easier to see. What actually gets stored for an image clip is the folder, and that's the program files, Graphic, Remark Office OMR 8, images, and then the file name. The file name starts with comments, the date is attached to it, and then a serial number is generated because you have all these different ones, so a unique serial number is generated, and then it's a TIFF file. So that's what's actually stored. This is actually a link to that file. So this is where the file is stored, and this is the name of the file. Okay? So that's what, once again, gets stored for image clips in your data file. So I'm going to close this, and we'll go back to our Remark Office software. So that's the first thing you can do with your scanned data. You can export it to other software, and what's happening is the software is building a native file type that the either Excel or SPSS can read directly. There's no import involved. Those are actual native data files. So the other thing you can do is use the onboard report generator in the Remark Office data center. You don't have to export the data anywhere to get results. You can go to Analysis here, and you can select one of these. If you were grading a test, you would use these two, Easy Grade and Grade Wizard, but we're processing a survey or evaluation. And you can get some quick results by just clicking on Easy Survey here. And when I do that, it's the third module of the Remark Office software will start up, and it's a program called Remark Quick Stats. I'm going to maximize it here. This is the report generator for the Remark software. And all we have to do to get some reports is click on Display Reports right here, and it will show us a list of the reports available. The software has already done some calculations on our data, and it's ready to create some of these reports. We're going to look at 3 or 4 of these reports. There are all kinds of different ways to present your data, and you can look at them yourself once you've scanned some forms, but let's look at a couple of them. The most basic way to display your data is just to display the questions and the answers and what were the percentages, and that's what this report does. Now, this title can be changed. This is just a title left over from the last time I was in the report generator. But what you can see here is each question, the possible responses, the percents at which each response was marked, and a little bar graph here giving you a graphic representation of your data. And so we go from question 1 to question 2 and all the way through all of our 16 questions. If we went down to page 2, we would get down, 15 questions. So this is the most basic way to get some results, and sometimes this is all you need. All you really want to see is the percentages. Now, with these reports, they're basically one-click reports, which means that the body of the report is more or less fixed. And so there are a few things you can change about any report. You can certainly change the title and the colors and things like that, but the body of the report is generally fixed. But if you do want to change some things, you can click on this Report Properties button, and this will bring up a list of the properties for this report that you can modify. And this is the report here, Condensed Item Analysis, and we can change the title up here if we wanted to change this to Winter 2013. We can do that. And we can change some of the colors if we wanted the writing to be black or something like that. Down here, though, there's some other properties in the body that you can actually change. And one of the things I want to do is add a couple of things that we had hidden. we're going to show the frequency, and we're going to show the mean. And when I click OK, the software will rerun the report and show us the new results. And here you can see it changed the title to Winter 2013. And what we added were the frequency, so it's showing you the actual numbers, not just the percentages. And then it's showing you the mean for the each question. So those are things that you can take out of this report. There is another report called the Item Analysis Graph Report that I'd like to show you. And this report shows you more or less just a graph, plus a little bit the percents and the responses. The graphs, you have a lot of control over how this graph looks. What we have is a pie chart, and we've told it we want 2 columns here. We have a great deal of control over the graph. I'm going to go to Report Properties here. I want to make bigger graphs, so I'm going to say just give me 1 display column. And I'm going to go down here to the Graph Properties, and I'm going to change the graph rather dramatically. We've got it set up as a 3D pie chart. You have all of these different graph types. 2D pie charts, you've got 2 and 3D bar charts. You can do line plots, log line plots, area plots, scatter plots, polar tape graphs. There's all kinds of different graphs you can select. I'm going to select a 3D bar chart because that's one of my favorite. And after you've selected the style of graph, you can change all kinds of things about the graph. So you have quite a bit of control here. I'm just going to click OK, and we're going to rerun the report. And so what we're going to get is a much larger graph, and it's going to be the 3D bar chart. So it shows you displays your data this way. Okay, so it's just a way to get a very nice graph of each question, and you can continue to go down through the pages, clicking here to see all of your questions. Okay, so this is a very nice graph report. And then a couple of other reports I want to show you. The Item Statistics Report. This report gives you the bell curve statistics for each of your questions. And over here you can see, let's punch this up a little bit so you can see a little better. I made that a little bigger. So here's each question, and then you get the standard bell curve statistics of mean, variance, standard deviation, and then a standard error column here. You also have values, if those mean anything to you, the minimum, maximum range. Then you have some descriptive statistics that describe the shape of your bell curve, whether skewness and kurtosis, and some of the others here, if those are important to you. And if you want your quartiles, here are your quartiles, 25%, medium, 75%. And then we have a column here for confidence intervals, okay? And these are confidence intervals of 1 and 99% or 5 and 95%. Those are normally how those are paired. So this is the more advanced statistical analysis, and these statistics tell you, did your questions measure what it was you were trying to measure. Now with this report, and I'm going to back it out a little bit so we can see it, with this report you cannot take out individual columns, but you can take out these groups. So if I go to Report Properties again, I can come down here and I can tell it, right now we're showing all the different groups. I'm going to tell it I don't want to see the values and I don't want to see the percentiles, and it will rerun the report without those groups. So now all we have are the summary statistics, the descriptive statistics, and the confidence intervals. Okay, so there's, once again, for each of these reports, you should, if there's something you want to change about it, go up to the report properties, look at the list of properties, and see if there's something that sounds like the property that you want to change. Okay, there are several other reports. Comparative item reports allows you to compare how each question was answered by different groups. So if I click on the comparative item report, I can tell it I'm just going to select date as my grouper since I have 2 different dates, and that's going to show us how each question was answered by the different dates. Here I have 9/12/09. Now we had some blank dates, so it used that too. but I have 912 as one group, and this is how many respondents there were and what the mean was for that group, and then the same information for the second group on the second day. So this is a way to compare how each question is answered. And then there's one more report. There's several other reports here, of course, and you would want to look through them to see what each report does. For brevity here, we're going to just skip over and go down to the last report that I want to show you, and that is the response report by item. This is the comments report. You can select any item that is not an actual survey question, and we're going to select comments, and what it's going to do is gather all of those image regions together onto a report, and this is what it looks like. So here are the comments that were made, and of course the purpose of this report is to be able to gather the comments together onto a single report so that they can be read by the person who needs to read them, and it stops you from having to flip through the forms themselves to read the comments. With any of these reports, you can export the report, and I'm going to go to File and Export, Report. You can export it as a number of different formats. RTF, rich text format, is one that Word will read. So if you wanted to export this to a Word file, you can create an image file, a TIFF, an HTML file. If you wanted to display this on the web, you can create an Excel spreadsheet. If you wanted to do some further analysis on the report data, you can also create a PDF so that it could be sent electronically to the person who needed to read the comments. So we're going to export to a PDF, and we'll go back to our AAA folder, and we'll type in our 2013 winter test data comments. And the software will then go out and create that file. And if we go back over to our AAA folder, we should be able to find it, and here it is, 2013 comments. Okay, so that's that report. Now, that is pretty much everything. There are other features of the Remark Office software, but that's a quick run through. There's one other feature that is quite important, and we'll click on data here and show that feature to you. It's called filter. This allows you to filter out a group from the whole. So if I wanted to filter out just C818 out of all these records, because that's the session I wanted to run my reports on, I could click on filter, and then here click on session ID equals. What I like about this value area here is that the software goes through and pulls out all the values in the data, so you don't have to type in a value. It brings up a list of all the possible values in your data. So we're going to select 818. If I wanted to put a secondary condition, either AND it or it, I can continue to add more fields here. And so if I wanted session 818 from date 09/12/09, I could add that condition here. But I'm going to turn it off because we're just going to do a simple condition, and then we're just going to execute. And here it's telling me that 15 of 29 records matched the query. And so our data set now is cut down to those 15 records. And if I run any report over here, the comments report will bring up just the comments for that section. Oops, I didn't run it quite right. There we go. And these are only the comments from the C818 section. Okay, so that is the filter property, and can be very handy if you've stored a great many different groups in the same data file, which is something that is a good idea to do in some cases. Okay, so that is the software as a whole. What we've looked at is how to scan some forms, how to export the raw scan data to other software, and how to create reports or get results from your data file. So once again, that's the end of our session today. And if you've gotten this far, then you've gotten some results of scanning a survey. Thank you for listening.